Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and we're really excited today to have the governor here with us. I want to just a couple of comments. A year ago, I wouldn't have dreamed of doing what we're doing right now. We're looking for more property in the state of Wisconsin. We need to expand this building. We wouldn't have done that had this governor been elected last year. It's a critical thing. I was born and raised in this city, in this state, and the fact that I was really annoyed that I couldn't be competitive in Wisconsin. But we've got a governor who understands it, and I think we'll get that done. So here he is, Governor Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. When I appreciate not only that confidence in me, but really in the state and the people of the state and the people of your great companies. We're proud to be here today to make a special announcement that ties into jobs. But I first off want to thank you and Greg and Bill and all the team here in particular. I know that in the coming days we're going to make sure we work with you and the mayor's here, and I know he's got an active interest in helping you find space here to grow as well. That's the good news out there. A lot of challenging news we hear around the globe and around the country, but it's nice to be honing in on companies like this that are looking to grow, looking to expand, looking to put more people, particularly in the middle class, back to work in the state. And it only happens when we've got job creators who have the confidence to take that kind of a risk and understand that they're in a state that's heading in the right direction. So that's part of why we wanted to talk today. And I'm going to tour around a little bit and see some of the workings here as well. But today in particular, we wanted to come here out of the Capitol and talk at a business that's growing, that's on the verge of growing even more in the future, and talk about what it takes to get Wisconsin back to work again. In particular, I'm calling today, I'll be signing an executive order that creates, as of tomorrow at 11 a.m., what we call a Back to Work Wisconsin special session. And what that means is we've got a series of almost 30 pieces of legislation from both Democrats and Republicans alike that we put together, as well as some new ideas that we believe will help take the next step and make it easier, Dick, for job creators like yourself and others to have the certainty and confidence in this state and in the people and consumers of this state to further add more jobs, particularly jobs for the middle class in the state of Wisconsin. We will call that, and really the reason for that is the good experience we had earlier this year. On January 3rd, just down the way at the Capitol, right after I took the oath of office as your 45th governor, I went out and signed a similar action that called the legislature into a special session on jobs. They came in for about 4 to 5 weeks and worked on a series of proposals we had out there that ultimately made it easier to do business in the state of Wisconsin. Exactly what you were talking about. Restored that confidence. I said the night of the election that Wisconsin was open for business, but I said on January 3rd we really started proving it. And we did all sorts of things that restored confidence, and the results were positive. In the first 6 months of the year, from January through the end of June, we saw nearly 40,000 new jobs in the private sector. That was twice the rate of growth of what we saw in the national economy when it came to jobs. We saw job creators here and across the country take notice. In fact, one of those surveys they do of states from number 1 to 50 in terms of what are the best and the worst states to do business in, we moved from 41 all the way up to 24 just in 1 year alone. Fastest increase of any state in the country. And I think that was in part a reaction from job creators across America looking at what we were doing in Wisconsin and saying, you know what, when they say they're open for business, they actually mean it. Even within our state, we saw not long after that, there's an annual survey that the Chamber of Commerce does across the state where they survey job creators and say, what's your feeling about where Wisconsin's headed? A year ago, unfortunately, in the height of all of our challenges, only about 10% of the employers in the state said that Wisconsin was heading in the right direction in that survey. Earlier this year, after our special session on jobs, 88% said that Wisconsin was heading in the right direction. 10% a year ago, 88% now. And what I liked the most about that survey was not only that 88% said we were heading in the right direction, but that a solid majority of those employers said in the next 12 months they're going to add more jobs in the state of Wisconsin. That's incredibly important for the middle class and for low-income families that are looking for work in this state. We need to have employers. It's not enough to talk about jobs. It's not enough to just say we want more jobs now. You got to have a climate where the people who actually create jobs, not the government, but the people who create jobs are feeling confident enough to start putting more investments in their company, adding more capital, and ultimately putting more people to work. That's going to be invaluable for middle-class families and low-income families in the state to start putting more people to work in the state. And so because we saw the good results early this year, we felt positive about that. But we saw in July and August in particular, just like states all across the country, that all the nonsense going on in Washington, when they talked about the debt and they failed to act on a lot of it and they created all sorts of chaos, had an impact here in Wisconsin just like it did in other places. It slowed down our economic growth. And so we looked at this and said we need to spend more time crisscrossing the state, talking to job creators, talking to workers in successful companies. And so I've been holding a series of listening sessions with job creators. I've been holding brown bag lunches where I go beyond just talking to the CEO or the boss, but I go out on the floor like we're doing today and hear from employees and hear what people really need to get this state working again, to get Wisconsin back to work. And what we found is that we need to break through what we see nationally. I said that the national economy, the nonsense in Washington is like a wet blanket in the economy. We need to punch through that blanket and show that Wisconsin can lead the way to recovery. And so to get us refocused on that, I believe firmly calling a special session, calling all the lawmakers, Republican and Democrat alike, bringing up pieces of legislation that come both from Republicans and Democrats, but things that are solely focused on helping us improve the economy. Things like ways we can provide greater access to capital so that employers can invest in that new equipment and new technology that puts more people to work. Things like making sure that we ultimately can help rein in some of the out-of-control regulations. And certainly we want clean air and clean water, good working conditions. But all too often I hear from employers who say regulations are standing in the way of us adding more jobs. You've got to make it easier, so streamlining that. Things that show that ultimately we can help improve workforce development. One of the biggest concerns I hear from employers all the time is while they've got great employees, there's not enough new skilled workers that are ready to come into the jobs that are available. So we need to do more to make sure we tackle workforce development issues. We need to do more in terms of changing the tax climate, particularly when it comes directly linked to jobs, and making it easier and providing incentives for those companies and individuals that want to add more jobs, giving them a tax incentive to do just that, because ultimately we want more of our people back to work. We need to make sure along the way that when we do that, we've got investments in our infrastructure. We keep up, in particular, our transportation so we can get our product to and from the market. And finally, we need to have certainty when it comes to the litigation climate in the state. You know, all too often I hear about red tape and I hear about lawsuits as being a challenge for employers not being able to add more work. And we want to make sure in each of those categories we provide more certainty and more stability for our employers, because in the end, I know, having traveled the state, Dick, like you talked to me about just coming in here, there's a great many employers in Wisconsin who are on the verge of being in a position where they can add more jobs. They can put more middle-class people back to work in this state, but they need to have the certainty to know that if they take that kind of risk, the state's going to be there with them. The state's not going to make it more difficult. If anything, the state's going to make it easier. And working with our partners at the local government, we can do that. So today, my belief is we've already got the legislature coming in this next month into the first week of November. They were coming in to talk about other things. We want them to be focused like a laser beam on jobs. We believe that was the great focus and the great success we had early on this year, when in January going into February, we had Republicans and Democrats alike voting for our bills in the special session. It helped open the door towards greater confidence and stability in the marketplace. It helped us put more people to work in the private sector. It helped make improvements in the middle class. We've seen that slow in July and August because of the nonsense in Washington. We want to show that their capital may be messed up out east, but in our capital, we're going to show a way to bring people together. It's why we specifically went out and found pieces of legislation from both political parties, with authors from both political parties, to say, you know, it's not about a Republican job or a Democrat job. It's just about Wisconsin jobs. And so that's why what we're announcing here today, and that's why I wanted to announce it with all of you, because the last thing I'll just kind of say in summary, beyond just this specific announcement about our special session, is that I'm an optimist. And I know there's a lot of challenges out there, but I think great challenges bring great opportunities. I believe without a doubt, as I've toured the state just like we're here today, I see a number of things that give me confidence and optimism for the future. One of which is we oftentimes, and I find it time and time again, have employers that are either multi-generational employers, and for those that aren't, they treat their employees like family. And they're vested here, and they've got roots here, and they want to grow here. But what I hear more often than not from employers like that, like here today, are saying, you know, we want to grow, but the biggest challenge standing in our way more often than not is the government. And if you can make it easier to move forward and put people back to work, we're ready to put people back to work. Along the way, not only with employers, but I see across the state an incredible workforce. I see people who are well-trained, well-prepared, who work hard starting on Monday morning all the way through the end of the day, or the end of the week on Friday, who work each of their shifts, who bring great skill and dedication, and I see it here again today, and I think that's one of our secret weapons. You know, one of the things I hear about when I travel and talk to businesses from other parts of the country and others across the globe is they don't always have that kind of work ethic that we have here in the Midwest. And so one of our strengths is having a good and solid workforce. And again, we want to make sure that we make it easier to attract people like yourselves to fill those new jobs, those new openings that will come from growth and expansion. So we continue to have that as one of our strongest selling points for coming here in this state. We are a state blessed with great employers, with great workers, with a great work ethic. We're a state that I often like to point out is the only state in the union surrounded by 2 Great Lakes and the greatest river in the U.S. We're filled with 15,000 inland lakes. I like to tell the guys in Minnesota that's 5,000 more than theirs, and all of ours have fish in them. And so we're just a great place to live in, to grow in, to raise a family in, to someday retire in, certainly to have a business in. We just want to make it easier for all the people who want to come and grow and expand in Wisconsin to be able to do that, so we can put more people, more of our friends and our neighbors and our colleagues in the middle class and low-income families that are unemployed right now or looking for more work. We want to give them more opportunities, and we think to get away from all the other stuff, all the other subjects that may be debated on the Capitol that would distract us from this. That's why we're calling a Back to Work Wisconsin special session, to put the focus firmly where it needs to be on, and that's on jobs in the great state of Wisconsin. So I appreciate the chance for all of you listening to hear me talk a little bit about this. I appreciate the good work you do right here at this site for this company, but I also appreciate what you represent for people all across the state, and that is a proud people in the state who are confident, who are well-skilled, who work hard, and who ultimately want to do even more to make sure that for those of us who have good jobs, that we find ways for our family and our friends and our neighbors who are seeking good jobs to have those same jobs again in the future. So thanks very much for letting me come by. And in a little bit, I guess, after I talk to the media here for a minute and take a few of their questions, we're going to go take a tour as well. So thanks very much for having me. No, I don't know. Chris, am I doing the questions from right here, or I'm coming over? Okay, I'm going over there. I'm grabbing my safety glasses, so I'm following OSHA rules to make sure I'm going around the factory right in shape, but we'll see you on the plant floor. Thanks very much.
What's your timeline to get this passed?
My hope is in the legislative session they already have planned. Looks like it'll go through the first week of November. Talking to legislative leaders, I think there's a certain interest in having it run parallel to that. Having talked not only to Jeff Fitzgerald and Scott Fitzgerald, but last week I talked to Senator Miller and Representative Barca. I talked to them about the bills that were involved, mentioned a number of bills by Democrats. Mentioned to them that if there were other bills or ideas that were really good jobs that we thought we could work on, we'd add that to the call. Representative Barker in particular asked about the time frame, when to make sure it didn't cause havoc on people's schedules. Our intent is to run it parallel so that we're not causing any chaos in terms of scheduling, but we'd like to have this special session completed by the time they're done the first week of November.
Barca's office is already saying this legislation is loaded with special interest giveaways. They're saying that the Democratic inclusion of Democratic ideas is just window dressing. How do you respond?
We come by in a little bit, I guess, after I talk to the media here and our friends and our neighbors who are seeking good jobs, to have us who have good jobs, that we find ways for our family. Ultimately, want to do even more to make sure that for those confident, who are well-skilled, who work hard, and who is a proud people in the state who represent for people all across the state, and that here at this site for this company. But I also appreciate what you talk a little bit about this. I appreciate the good work you do right. I appreciate the chance for all of you listening to hear me, and that's on jobs in the great state of Wisconsin. So the focus firmly where it needs to be on the Work Wisconsin special session, to put the practice from this. That's why we're calling back to other subjects that may be debated on the Capitol with distractions. And we think to get away from all the other stuff, all the ideas that came from Democrats, even though there's still some...
But are you getting any hints from the Republican leadership that they're going to help you out with this?
Well, in the end, I think that they want to stay focused on jobs just like I do. And while there may be a few individuals out there who's still smarting from the past, we think it's time to move on. It's time to get Wisconsin back to work, and that includes the legislature.
Governor, is this like a laser beam thing that you talked about? It's pretty much the same thing you were saying before the January session, and yet unemployment remains high. Job growth hasn't been at the rate that you had hoped it would be. What makes you optimistic that this is going to be any different?
Well, I think it's another wave. But again, if you look at the breakdown, the first 6 months really as a reaction to what we did in that special session, as well as other factors, we did see we saw much higher job growth than we saw nationally, about double the national level, a little bit over actually, double the national rate of growth. We saw just under 40,000 new jobs in the private sector. It was really July and August when we saw the slowdown. I think in many ways indicative of the problems we saw nationally with the debate over the national debt. And so we think we need to take it the next step. We saw the success the first time. We think putting a renewed focus, sending a clear message to job creators and the people of the state that we're once again focused on jobs. There aren't other distractions. There aren't other legislative initiatives. But instead, we're focused on things that will help job creators. We think we'll kickstart things once again.
Governor, do you see this as an olive branch to Democrats after what was so divisive earlier this year by bringing some of their proposals to the table?
Well, I certainly hope that's part of it, but in the larger context, what we tried to do was not just pick bills randomly, but rather pick things that we thought, we looked through all the pieces of legislation that had been introduced, we circled out things we thought would be productive in terms of helping job creators put more people to work. A number of those pieces happen to be bills either authored or partially authored by Democrats, and so we think that certainly helps set a new tone. If there are more ideas, more suggestions that come from both Democrats and Republicans alike, we'd add to them. But more important than just the tone, it's saying the real focus is not just about being bipartisan. That's great. But more importantly, it's about being focused on jobs and not being distracted by a bunch of other issues.
What about mining?
For us, we think both when it comes to venture capital and mining, those are two important discussions to have related to jobs. But with mining, the Senate set up a select committee that's dealing specifically with that. We didn't want to get in the way of that process. In the same way, I've asked former Secretary of Administration Mark Buer to help us on venture capital. He's been meeting with 4 representatives, 2 from each party, as well as private sector entities and venture capital. And hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll have something that goes well. Both of those are separate right now from the special session. If we thought that was the right way to move, we might add them. But for now, we think they can be brought forward on separate pieces of legislation.
Speaking of distractions, how distracting is this ongoing investigation and a number of your former employees and current employees?
For us, I mean, the bottom line is, as I've said yesterday, we were talking at the Job Creation Summit. I know how I've conducted myself in public service. It's the traditions I had from my parents. It's part of how I obtained the rank of Eagle Scout. We operate at high integrity. I don't know what all the details are involved with it, and probably won't know, if at all, at least for some time. And so for us, we're going to stay focused just like I started on January 3rd. Every day, every week, and every month is going to be focused on jobs. And this or anything else is going to distract us.
Are you been called to testify?
Do you retain confidence in Cullen Ward?
No, I haven't received any contact personally. Now, that could change in the future, but so far, the only thing we've gotten even close to that was our campaign was asked for emails. We complied with that, but there's nothing, no direct contact either.
Governor, do you retain confidence in Cullen Ward? He was concerned enough about criminal exposure to enter into a deal for immunity. Do you retain confidence in him, or is he compromised?
I don't believe so. I mean, again, folks asked me yesterday when I knew when you all did, and that's because to me...
But now that you know, do you feel like he may be compromised because he was so concerned about criminal prosecution that he entered into a deal for immunity?
No, because again, I don't know in the past, looking at other issues out there, why individuals are offered that. I don't know. I'm not privy to that, nor I will I be under the way that I understand things like this operate. If we found out something differently, we obviously would take action on that. But so far, we don't even know precisely what it may or may not involve.
Were you aware that Cindy Archer was so ill that she would not be able to serve in the job that you and your staff helped orchestrate for her?
We had concerns originally. It's why there was a change made at the Department of Administration, and we thought that was a position we had to have filled as the deputy to the Secretary of Administration, and that was the highest priority that we had. But we also felt that we need to make sure that individual had access to the ability to get assistance they might need from a medical physician. And obviously she can answer that under HIPAA. I can't talk about it anymore in that regard.
Governor, are you confident that your administration handled that whole transfer of Ms. Archer correctly?
Again, there's always room to go back and look at things. The bottom line was we wanted that individual to have the opportunity to continue to work, to get access to the assistance they need from a medical standpoint. And the bottom line is she, having been the deputy of the Department of Administration, was probably qualified to have any number of positions in the state of Wisconsin.
All right, we've got to start the tour.
Are you going back and looking at things? You mentioned there's always room to do that.
Well, I mean anything, just retrospective on any issue we look at, but we're not right now.
Thanks, guys.
Again, I don't know. I said, as I mentioned yesterday, we say that Dan, to me, the interesting part about all these stories is, at least those in the paper, are either based on sources that don't know what they're talking about, or they're based on sources who, according to what they're reporting, are breaking the law. In either case, it's hard to comment on that when you look at those two circumstances.
Thanks.
Good.